everybody today? Y'all all poured out? Feels like another Monday all over again. So see how we go today. Starting a new section today. Have 2 chapters to do this week. Chapter 14 on motivation. So we're going to handle today. So we'll take a look at that one. Lots of theories in this chapter today. Tons. Some that have been around for a long time, and some that are fairly new theories. You probably recognize some of them if you've taken a psychology class. So they may be repeats for you. Others have been directly related to management. So we'll take a look at some of those as well. All of them that are presented, they just hit the highlights with them, nothing in detail with any of them. So one more time, I'm going to try to connect with these guys. We'll just keep on going. Okay, so again, if you take a look at this week's overview, you'll see chapter 14 is on motivation. Then we're going to look at teams and groups on Thursday. I don't believe you have anything other than your reading assignments. I did go through and grade the personal mission statements if y'all want to check out your grades on those. I finally got those finished up, so that's pretty good. We're going to start off by looking at a video about Steve Jobs, which is hopefully a name that you all know as being an extremely important individual working for Apple. And we're going to talk about some of his leadership skills and how he motivated people. One thing about Steve Jobs is he was not particularly a likable person. So being liked doesn't necessarily come as a prerequisite for being able to motivate people. So, you know, I personally have a great desire to be liked, but other people don't, and he is one of those that did not. So let's take a look at some of what he had to offer.
What's up, everybody? This is Charlie from Prism again, and today I'm going to be doing a leadership breakdown of Steve Jobs. And I say leadership very specific because unlike a lot of the people you might have seen me do on this channel before, Steve Jobs was not the world's most likable guy. In fact, a lot of the people that worked most closely with him would describe him as very abrasive. But what he was undeniably a master at was inspiring and leading people. When he came back to Apple to turn that company around, he had employees, customers, investors, all who were doubting what Apple was capable of. Yet he led them to be literally the most profitable company in the world at one point in time. So what I want to do is talk about how he was able to do that. And it starts with a vision.
There needs to be someone who is sort of the keeper and reiterator of the vision. Because there's just a ton of work to do. And a lot of times, you know, when you have to walk 1,000 miles and you take the first step, it looks like a long ways. And it really helps if there's someone there saying, well, we're one step closer. You know, the goal definitely exists. It's not just a mirage. So in 1,001 little and sometimes larger ways, the vision needs to be reiterated. I do that a lot.
So this is perhaps the most important role of a leader, is to set a clear, achievable, and persuasive vision. Because whether you're managing a group of small people or an entire company, that group will tear itself apart as it runs in the direction of individuals. What it needs is a uniting purpose, a uniting vision that is constantly in everybody's minds so that they are all moving in the same direction to move that company or that group forward. So I want to talk about now what exactly the vision that Steve had set forward for Apple was and why it was so compelling.
What we're about isn't making boxes for people to get their jobs, although we do that well. We do that better than almost anybody in something. But Apple's about something more. Apple at the core, its core value is that we believe that people with passion can change the world for them. That's what we believe.
Now, this is the core vision, the core value, whatever, the core passion, whatever you want to call it, that Steve Jobs had set out for his employees and for the people who bought his products. It's that people with passion can change the world. And I want to talk about why this vision, while seemingly very broad, is actually incredibly effective. One, it's very simple. Almost any of the marketing messages that you've heard from Apple or Steve Jobs boil down to just a few words, certainly one sentence. So if you think back, there was the iPod campaign that was 1,000 songs in your pocket. The first time that I saw Steve Jobs talk about what the computer was, he said it's like a bicycle for the mind. You need to keep your vision, your core set of values very, very simple, because your employees, the people beneath you, people who are buying your products, they need to be able to communicate it succinctly to the people around them. Step two, and this is seemingly contradictory, this isn't about, we're going to be the #1 computer maker in the entire world, which is what the mission is for a lot of companies. This goes beyond being #1. This goes beyond making a lot of money. This goes to a fundamental human need, which is to do something that matters, right? To have work that has a lasting impact that can change the world. If your vision isn't inspiring people on an emotional level, if you're just firing them up with a promise of higher compensation, that vision will fall flat on its head. The last thing is that Steve Jobs didn't just have this vision in his head. He was ruthless about living by it. But a lot of people, when they talk company visions or even their own personal life visions, it's a flowery set of words that they don't actually make decisions on. Steve Jobs was ruthless in cutting product lines that he didn't think were going to change the world, that he didn't think Apple could be the best at. He constantly was refocusing his people on this vision of doing something big that was going to change the world. And honestly, that was their heyday, the iPod, the iPad, even the iMac before that. That focus on the vision is what made it so powerful. That is what inspired the people around him. And if you look at his employees, as we'll do in just a second, they picked up the message loud and clear.
I have to say, of all the people I've met, there was nobody, clearly nobody like Steve. When you were next to him, just talking, you could feel the electricity in your body. You could feel his charisma. And it wasn't just because he was a cult leader or anything. You just actually could feel it, because I'm not necessarily a cult follower. And he made me feel, he could inspire you. He made you feel like you could do anything. And as long as you believe that, you really could do anything. As long as you won't sacrifice anything.
So really, that's what Steve Jobs did for the people around him, the people under him that worked for him. He made them feel like they could not only change the world, but that anything was possible if they worked hard enough. And so they were willing to go to really extreme measures to pull the kind of things off that he asked for that oftentimes were, quite frankly, technologically infeasible and ridiculous and very, very hard to pull off. But they managed to do it because of this belief that it was possible, that passionate people could change the world. Now, this is not the only thing that Steve Jobs had going for him. In fact, there's a lot of other stuff. But the second one that I want to touch on now is what got people emotionally riled up. And it's that Steve Jobs spoke in high stakes metaphors. Let's check it out.
Sun is, if you will, our friend, because they're going to spend their marketing money to convince people to move into the segment. But the minute they made their choice to move into the segment, whether we convinced them or Sun has convinced them, Sun and Next are mortal enemies.
So there you go, mortal enemies. Not something you'd expect someone who talks about computers, microprocessors, and workstations to describe a business battle as, but that gets people fired up.
In other words, if we zoom out of the big picture, it would be a shame to have lost the war because we've won a few battles. And I sort of feel like I and some of the rest of us are concentrating too much on the smaller battles. We have to and we're not keeping the war in perspective. War is called survival.
Again, he's talking about survival, war, smaller battles. These are all very human, emotionally driven, archetypal things almost. These go back hundreds, if not thousands of years, and people have a lot of reference points to think about what war, battle, survivor means all the way throughout history, some people even from personal experience. So when we talk in these sort of terms, in these sort of metaphors, and not just in, okay, we've got to win or else we might lose our job, this gets people emotionally engaged, and that was something that Steve Jobs was able to do at an incredible level for his own employees.
Well, Big Blue dominates the entire computer industry. The entire information age. Was George Orwell right?
So that's Steve Jobs talking about IBM, Big Blue, and how they have majority of market share in the 1980s. And again, this is not one that I love, but it is incredibly effective. Creating an enemy. Throughout Apple's history, Steve Jobs always had an enemy in mind. Sometimes it was Microsoft, it was Big Blue there. Other times it was just conformity in general. There's the PC guy versus Mac guy. There's always an antithesis in the way that he speaks. And having that enemy, again, gets people incredibly fired up. They feel like their survival is on the line. They feel like they need to win a battle. And they work that much harder. Not a tactic that I'm a huge fan of, because I don't think that the world needs to be perceived in terms of us versus them all the time. But from Steve Jobs' perspective, this worked. This absolutely got people working harder. So you start with this very clear, very simple vision that gets people moving in the same direction, something that they're excited about. You add to that this jet fuel of emotionally charged metaphor. And in the case of Steve Jobs, he talked about wars, he talked about survival, and he added this element of this looming enemy that people needed to fight and struggle against. That gets people moving very, very passionately. But that all falls apart if one piece isn't there. And fortunately for Steve Jobs, it's something that he had in spades, which is conviction. Steve Jobs believed everything that he said to a fault. He had this vision of the world that he truly felt was going to come true. And when he communicated with people, they sensed how much he believed it. And that certainty made them jump onto his bandwagon. So I want to go now to John Scullin. This is a guy who was asked to be the CEO of Apple. Steve Jobs was working there. He's currently the CEO of Pepsi, and here he is recounting the story of how Steve Jobs got him to leave his cushy gig at Pepsi.
And then he looked up at me and just stared at me with the stare that only Steve Jobs has, and said, "You want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or you want to come with me and change the world?" And I just gulped, because I knew I would wonder for the rest of my life, what I would have missed.
And there you have it. That is what fires people up. Now, I don't have a ton of time to talk about how to develop conviction. Maybe that's a topic for another video. If you're interested in that, go ahead and let me know in the comments. But there's one way that conviction comes very, very clearly, and it's in the choice of words that we use. Our words betray the way that we feel all the time. And if you look at Steve Jobs, he oftentimes didn't talk in terms of possibilities. He talked in certainties. He would say, we are this. We will release this computer by this date. He talked as if things had already happened, which is actually a very similar thing to Conor McGregor. You've seen that breakdown. So I just want to show one example when he'd come back to Apple, how he talked about the company bouncing back. And it wasn't, we will likely do this, we can do this, it is, we will do this.
I really deeply appreciate all of the commitment that's in this room and the people not in this room turning this company around. This company's absolutely going to turn around. As a matter of fact, I think the question now is not, can we turn around Apple? I think that's the booming thought. So I think it's, can we make Apple really great?
So there you go. This company is absolutely going to turn around. What I recommend that you do is you pay particular attention to the words that you find yourself using when you speak to people trying to persuade them. Oftentimes we say exactly what we think, and we show other people exactly how we feel. See if you are speaking with certainty, or actually if you're betraying the fact that you're very uncertain yourself. This isn't something you can fake. This is communicated in 1,000 micro expressions in your vocal tonality and in your word choice. So if you have a conviction around something you're saying, you first need to have confidence. So I set up a separate video with an exercise that is designed to give you a scientifically proven boost of confidence inside of 60 seconds so that you can speak with conviction of someone like Steve Jobs. This is the type of thing that I do before I record a video, before I get on stage, and it can basically take you from that feeling of nervous anxiety, not speaking very clearly, tripping over your words, to speaking much more fluidly, much more connected with what you have to say, and communicating to the people around you in a much more effective manner. So if you want to see what that video is, it's something that you can learn in just a few minutes and implement in 60 seconds. Go ahead, click the link now. It'll take you to another page where you go, drop your email, and you can watch that video. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and click subscribe so you get notified every time that I release a new one. I'm going to be doing one, maybe two a week for the entirety of 2016. I'm pretty excited about that. And if you have any topics, any people that you would like to contribute, please go ahead and write them in the comments. Upload the other comments that have the people and topics you'd like to do. That's how I'm going to be deciding what videos to do. So until those future videos, I am Charlie. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video.
Okay, so we're not doing that one, of course, but thought that was a nice little leeway into this topic of motivation. How do you get people fired up? Okay, how able to do what you want them to do. So let me try. Zoom one more time to see if these people will come in.
Hey, what are we doing?
Hey guys.
Hey, can you hear us?
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but you all were never there, so.
The equipment was off in the room.
Ah, okay. Well, I will tell you all what we did so far was to watch the video on Steve Jobs, and that is on Blackboard, so everybody should be able to go back and view that on their own, and I don't think you will have missed much, but it's also in the recording, so you can take a look at that when I post it up on Blackboard as well. So good, we finally got everybody here then.
I'll remember that. We can hear you loud and clear, Miss Henderson.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I got notified, came down immediately.
I do appreciate it. I couldn't find anybody in IT here to help out. Otherwise, we would have done something. But
All right. Well, I sent you a message, but I called your Zoom account, not the Dan 41 room. So maybe
okay.
this
Okay.
was.
We're good to go now. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Sorry about that, y'all. We'll pick up with taking a look at the PowerPoint slides. So all of you that missed out on that, do go back and watch that because it tells you how a very unlikable person, Steve Jobs, was still able to entirely motivate his staff by getting them fired up and bring Apple back to a very profitable company. All right, so let me share again, and we will get to our PowerPoint slides. So delete. Okay, are you all seeing PowerPoint slides?
No.
All right, let's stop it and try again. Better?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be studying a number of theories in this chapter. We're going to talk about what motivation is, but we've got a lot of theories that we're going to just touch on here. So, but first of all, what is motivation? If you did get a chance to watch that video, getting people fired up might be one way to put it. But it is an inner state that causes an individual to accomplish some goal that you have in mind. It does explain why people act as they do. It gives them initiative. It makes them persist. But again, it is directed mainly towards job performance, trying to get them to do what you want them to do. All right, we're going to look at two broad groups of theories in this chapter. One set's called process theories. The other is called content theories. The process theories will look at how people get motivated and look at the steps that happen when someone is motivated. The content theories are going to focus in on internal characteristics of individuals and their needs, how you can try to satisfy their needs. All right. In the process theories, we've got four of them: needs goal theory, Vroom expectancy theory, equity theory, and Porter-Lawler theory. So we'll take a brief look at each one of these. All of the first group do focus in a lot on employee needs. provide some goal supportive behavior to get that person to react with that behavior. So it starts out with the individual feeling a need, and then that transforms into behavior that supports whatever that goal behavior is to be performed. Individuals who set goals have an easier time focusing on relevant activities. So one of the exercises that you all have had to do so far was to identify 2 goals that you have in order to accomplish your personal mission statement. And it has been found that people who actually set their goals will have an easier time actually achieving them. Putting them down on paper, writing them down will help you actually achieve those goals. Now, as a manager, you need to get into all of your employees' individual needs, okay? And understand what kind of rewards you need to offer to satisfy those needs. And they're not going to be the same for each individual, that's for sure. All right, the second theory, the broom expectancy theory, again, you're going to see that word needs show up there. It says that a person's felt needs will drive your behavior. Okay, so you have motivation to perform a behavior based on the strength of your needs. That motivation is going to fluctuate as your desire increases or decreases. I can remember when I was younger, I felt a tremendous need to reach a certain level in a company that I was working for. I wanted to reach a middle management level, okay? And there were times when I felt like that was what was driving me to do whatever I was doing, was so that I could get that promotion to middle management. But as time went on, that didn't become as important to me. I have other needs now, so it'll fluctuate as time goes. This is one of those theories that they actually put into an equation form. Your motivation strength, how strongly you are motivated, is the perceived value of the result of your behavior times the probability that that result will actually materialize. You know, there was a phase there where every type of theory had to be put into a form of an equation. So that's just one of those cases. So again, you're looking at your perceived value of doing something. If I produce 50 more goods than I did last year in my business, if you perceive that that's going to be what gets you that increase to middle management, then that will have something to do with how strongly you are motivated to do that. But also the probability that that behavior that you're doing will actually cause the result to materialize. All right, moving on to the equity theory of motivation. This is where people look to see whether they believe they are being treated equally in comparison with their coworkers. Okay? And if they see that there is some inequity between them and their coworkers, they will react to try to fight that inequity. They may change their work outputs, maybe work harder, or they'll work less. Okay? They may change their compensation. They may go in and request a raise, or maybe even file a lawsuit of some sort to try to get compensation for the inequity. They may change their perceptions about something. If they cannot actually rationalize it, they may change the way they perceive it, or they may leave the situation altogether. Okay? That's when you compare with your coworkers and look at whether you feel like you have been treated equally. Now, you decide whether you are experiencing inequity, looking at your work assignments, okay? Maybe the person who's getting paid the same as you is doing a lot less work than you are, okay? Promotions, okay? Maybe the person that has been working far fewer years than you have just got promoted. That's inequity. Compensation, maybe you're working side by side with somebody who is getting paid double what you're getting paid. Ratings reports, even that has to do with evaluations and performance evaluations, and then office assignments. All right, I mean, you may think that sounds petty, but I know people who are like, well, I work just as hard as this person did. How come they get the office in the corner with the windows overlooking the pretty world? Okay, so all of that fires up those emotions and makes people behave differently because it affects people's feelings of self-worth. Okay, that person is worth more than I am because they've got the office with the window. I mean, that might sound ridiculous, but that's the kind of thing that goes on all the time. All right, the Lawler theory of motivation. I don't like this little flow chart. It's kind of hard to see where you even start with this thing. Let's look at the next one. Again, it is a need-driven type theory that says that your rewards come from your effort. If you put effort forth, that you're doing it because of your perception of the reward that you're going to get. Okay? If I work harder, I will get a promotion, that kind of thing. Your perceived fairness of the rewards will influence how much satisfaction is produced by those rewards. So if you get a raise, if you feel like that's a fair measure of the reward that you get for working harder, then you'll be more satisfied with that. Okay, so all of those up until this point have been process theories of motivation. I think there were 4 of them altogether. We also have 4 content theories of motivation. Again, you see that word needs up there, but it's a little broader and it looks at human needs in general rather than individual needs. The first one we're going to look at, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I bet you've seen somewhere in a psychology class or perhaps in an intro to business class or something. We'll also look at Aldorfer's ERG theory, Argyris's maturity-immaturity continuum, and McClellan's acquired needs theory. All of these are ones that have been around for quite some time. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that we have sort of a pyramid of needs that we have to satisfy the bottom level before we can move up to another level. First of all, we need to satisfy our physiological needs. That's for food and water and rest, that kind of stuff, before we start beginning about the second tier, which is our security or our safety needs. Once those are satisfied, we can move on to satisfying social needs. That's our desire to be with others and communicate with others. Then we can move to esteem needs, which are our own values of esteem. And then, of course, the top point is to reach a place where we are trying to self-actualize. We don't worry about others so much as we are trying to become the best that we can of ourselves. So this little slide just shows you some of the things that I mentioned that fell into each one of those categories there that hopefully can explain them a little bit better. The ERG theory, the E stands for existence, the R for relatedness, and the G for growth. Again, those are all needs that we have. The existence need is the need for physical well-being. The relatedness need is the need to have interpersonal relationships. And the growth need is the need for personal growth and development. So we each have some components of those needs that we are attempting to satisfy. The maturity-immaturity continuum says that our needs progress along a continuum that focuses on personal and natural development. So we kind of progress from being immature to mature as we go along that continuum. That you can stop and think about yourself if you are feel like you are in the immature stage in your needs, or are you in the mature stage, or somewhere in between there. So this is the natural progression that goes from a state of passivity where you really don't care, you're just kind of existing. Then you start depending on other people. You're capable of behaving in many different ways, and then you get into deeper, more lasting interest. Start looking in the long view of things, the long-term realm of things. You aspire to occupy an equal subordinate position, and then finally come to control over yourself. So where are you along that continuum? Are you back at the beginning in the immature state where you're just passive and you're kind of letting life go by? Have you gotten more into looking at deeper, more lasting interest, or are you at the point where you are completely trying to get control over yourself? McClellan's acquired needs theory says that through life, we have different types of needs: need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation. And the abbreviations just have those little ends before each one of those. So that begs the point that they're probably going to stick this in a formula somewhere. Your need for achievement, and different people weigh these needs differently. If you have a high need for achievement, that means that achievement, just achieving something, becomes more motivating than getting the profits from it. Okay? Set challenging yet achievable goals. But if you're on the other end and you have a small need for achievement, you try to stay away from challenging goals and responsibilities and risk. Does it turn you on to just achieve something? Okay, maybe your goal is to get an A in this particular class. Is that exciting that you got the A? Is that something you really felt the need to do and that motivated you? Or did you just set your goal a lot smaller and you didn't want to try to be challenged by it? The need for power is the fact that some people get motivated by the ability to influence others. Okay? Usually they want more and more responsibility. These types of people have, they enjoy competition. They like going head to head with people. They also enjoy decision making. And then finally, those that have a high need for affiliation do well in team types of situations. They like to cooperate. They like the groups that they're working with to make decisions through team efforts. But sometimes if their need for approval and friendship gets too high, they maybe won't make the right decisions. So kind of define yourself there, okay? As to where you feel like you fall. Are you a high need for achievement, need for power, or need for affiliation? But all of them, as far as what we can learn from managers, is that we can identify the unsatisfied needs of our organization members, and we can work as managers to try to satisfy those needs. And it will depend upon the individual people involved. So how are we going to motivate these folks? We figure out what their needs are and we attempt to help satisfy them. Of course, communication is a big tool. It is your most basic strategy in everything. But managers communicate differently. Douglas McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y, again, is a very fundamental management theory that see over and over in business schools. Managers that are Theory X people tend to have negative assumptions about employees. They think the average worker just dislikes coming to work. They're naturally lazy. They avoid work when they can. And these usually turn out to be bad managers. Okay? But Theory Y managers have positive assumptions about employees. They feel like that employees actually like work. They're seeking responsibility. They are creative. They will be able to self-direct themselves. And Theory Y people make good managers. So think about your basic assumptions about workers out there. If you're going to be a manager, do you think the people who work for you are there just, they hate the fact that they're there? They are going to avoid coming to work when they can? Or do you feel like that these people are excited about their jobs and they're seeking their own responsibility? Other ways to motivate people in your organization actually deal with the design of the job. You can rotate people in jobs, okay? People get tired doing the same thing over and over their entire life. So maybe you can rotate them into another job. Or you can enlarge the job, make it bigger, okay? Add on more responsibilities. Enrich the job, okay? More fulfilling somehow. Flex time. Flex time has been proven to really motivate some people who are not capable of dealing with 8 to 5 jobs sometimes. There's a chart later on where we'll look at some positives and negatives of flex time. When we are looking at enriching a job, we're going to look at hygiene factors and motivating factors. This is under Hertzberg's two-factor theory, and again, another theory that's in this chapter, but another fundamental managerial theory. To enrich a job, you can look at the maintenance factors, which deal with the work environment, okay? Providing an appropriate office, an appropriate parking lot, a cafeteria for people to go to. Those types of things are hygiene factors, and they certainly are motivational. I obviously would not be happy if they brought me in and sat me down at a desk out in the hallway and told me I had to do my job from there every day. But there are also motivating factors that have to do with the work itself and not the environment that you are in. And when you have motivating factors from the job itself, then people are motivated to actually do what you are asking them to do. Okay. So if you relate this to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the lighter colored portions of the pyramid there are basically dealing with the hygiene or maintenance factors, whereas the darker colored pyramid sections deal with the motivating factors that deal with the job itself. So All of them important, but as you can see, they kind of go up the spectrum there, going more and more to the self-individual motivation. This is the chart that I was mentioning about flex time, advantages and disadvantages. Anybody ever had an opportunity to work under flex time where you get to kind of set your own hours? Not everybody comes into the job at the same hour and leaves at the same hour in the business. Usually increases morale a little bit, and actually helps with working parents who have to deal with getting kids off to school in the morning or to daycare or whatever. It can improve commuting problems. I worked in downtown DC for a while, and one of the biggest problems, of course, there is commuting back and forth to work. Some people were able to schedule flex times where they came in later, but they stayed later just to avoid the commute problems. It can increase production, help you if you've got appointments, personal appointments like doctor's appointments and so on. It can decrease absenteeism and turnover, but on the downside, there are often with flex time, there is a lack of supervision during some hours of work. Let's say the normal work hours are 8 to 5, but you've chosen to work from 10 to 7. There may not be any supervisors there between 5 to 7. There may be that certain people are not available at certain times, or the jobs become understaffed. Employees may actually abuse flex time, okay? And it makes it hard to plan your work schedules. Also makes it hard to schedule meetings that are at times when they're convenient for everybody. You can kind of view instructors as having a flex time type schedule. Not all of us come in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and neither do we leave at 5 in the evening. Many of us have night classes, so when we have a night class, we may come in late in the mornings and so on. One of the hardest things to do is to try to get everybody in a department together at the same time for a meeting, because folks are not available all those times. All right, so actual psychological behavior modification techniques are reinforcement, both positive and negative reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Wow, okay. We probably, if you've been a parent, you've probably used the positive reinforcement and the negative reinforcement. You may have actually punished your child. Hopefully you've not caused them to become extinct, but now translate those types of behavioral things towards your employees who work for you. Okay. Likert came up with a management system that identified 4 systems that stem from the trust in the subordinates all the way up to, or lack of trust, all the way up to being very trusty and confident in subordinates. So again, it's a system that kind of moves along a continuum from not believing your subordinates can do their jobs all the way up to giving complete trust and confidence in them. You can see that the system 1 managers may actually increase productivity in the short term, but production actually drops off in the long run where you don't trust them. But the system 4, where the trust is there, might drop off a little bit in the beginning because you're kind of turning over everything to them. but production goes up and stays up for a longer period of time. Let's not forget that money can also motivate people. Okay, plenty of monetary incentives out there, not just incentives for physical needs and that type of thing. Some of the monetary incentives are employee stock ownership plans, bonuses, or gain sharing. On the non-monetary side, we have promotions from within a company and an emphasis on quality. So all of those, different people respond to these incentives differently than others. Are you motivated by money? Okay. Are you motivated by promotions, for instance? And again, that can change during your life. Back and forth between the two. Right now, money is a pretty big motivator for me. Okay. And I think it's because as part of the Commonwealth of Virginia, we haven't had a lot of monetary rewards over the last decade almost. Our salaries have been basically flat, and we feel like we are continuing to work more and more for the same pay. So money would be a big motivator for me right now. Okay, but I can remember working in a different job where money was good and we got at least 10% raises every year. Times were very different though. It was promotion that motivated me. The money was there, so I had it for all the needs that I needed it for, but I had this intrinsic need for promotion. So again, it will change throughout your life. Okay, so anybody have any questions? Again, lots and lots of theories. My suggestion is for you to the next test coming up, you have those little guys highlighted and perhaps little tabs set out for them. So when you get a question about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can find your little tab and get to it and find which one is at the bottom of the pyramid, which one's at the top of the pyramid. It requires you to do a little strategic planning for the next test because there's so much packed in there in the way of the definitions for the theories and that type of stuff. Okay. So again, no actual homework other than keeping up with your reading. Go back and do take a look at the grades on your personal mission statements. Most of them were excellent. I saw they were brief, to the point in most cases, but I saw you all had some. It really just amazes me. I see the generation coming through now seems to be much more in tune with having missions that actually contribute to society somehow. Some leaving an impact for the world, not just for yourself. So I can remember a couple decades ago, if I asked for a personal mission statement, it would be things like, my mission is to be a millionaire by the time I'm 25 or something like that. So I see lots of more society-related missions coming out of you guys, and some really good goals, of which many of them had to do with getting your degrees. So excellent work on those. And only reminder I have is to make sure you're following the rules for the presentation, double spacing, that kind of stuff. And please, again, I still see a few folks having problems with sentence structure, not writing complete sentences, missing verbs and that kind of thing. So go back and read your what you're submitting before you actually turn it in, or read it out loud, or have somebody read it to you and see if you have full sentences in there. But otherwise, those grades were really good. So we will tackle the next chapter on Thursday, and I will be coming from South Boston. So those of you that in South Boston that missed out, go back and take a look at that video on Steve Jobs, and I will see you all on Thursday.